Hi, this is Amy Boucher in athletics. I need to go over a few things with you before you start your seasons. First of all, there should be some paperwork that you should be working on to complete during this time that your coaches have given you. If you have any questions on that, please let us know and we'll help you fill that out. If you are 17 years old, you need to be sure that your parents might need to sign that with you because you're a minor, so please get with somebody in athletics to talk about that to be sure your paperwork is in order. You need to be registered with the Eligibility Center for the NCAA, and you'll know that you've done that when you have an NCAA ID number, so if you have that, you're already ready to go. After practice starts, you have 45 days to get everything ready with the Eligibility Center and cleared for practice. Some things you need to know about your registration is that you have to pass 9 hours to be eligible the following semester, and you have to maintain a 2.0 GPA. You cannot drop below 12 hours during the semester. So if you need to drop a class, you need to speak with myself or the compliance director or the athletic director before the registrar will drop you from the class. Remedial classes such as English skills and math literacy only count during your freshman year. If you're taking them during a sophomore year, you will need to be sure that you're taking extra hours on top of that to get to your 12. You need to pass 9 hours every semester, and including the summer, you have to be at 24 hours for the academic year and maintain a 2.0 GPA by fall. If you're on academic probation, you are not eligible to participate in games, but you can still practice with the team. You can appeal this decision to the provost. You must declare a degree by your 5th semester and take degree applicable credit hours. And you also have 10 full-time semesters to complete 4 seasons in Division II. Aid cannot be reduced or canceled during the period of the award unless you render yourself ineligible, voluntarily quit, engage in misconduct, or break team rules. There is a possibility to receive a red shirt if you do not participate in more than 30% of contests, and there is an injury, a medical hardship red shirt as well, and you'll be able to talk with Mike about that. If you are interested in transferring, please be sure you've spoken with your coach first to try to reach a resolution. If you still decide you want to transfer, then you can contact athletics and they'll put you on the transfer portal. If you are on scholarship, a coach can deny the one-time transfer to another institution, and you would have to sit at that institution. But you can appeal this decision to Dr. Shriver and go before a committee which could overturn or approve of the coach's decision. You are not allowed to speak to another Division I, II, or III university until you are put on the transfer portal. To be eligible to compete at the institution you are transferring, you must be eligible to return and compete at SBU. Inside the conference, there is a transfer rule as well, so you'll want to check into that before you decide to go to an intra-conference school. If you transfer with only 1 season of competition remaining, you must transfer 12 hours for every full-time semester that you've attended. Okay, some more fun things to know. Gambling is impermissible for student athletes or athletics staff member. Fantasy leagues are okay if you do not pay to play, or if you pay an entry fee but do not receive prizes. Tobacco. The use of tobacco is prohibited by NCAA and by SBU. This includes smokeless tobacco. For sports that require tickets, you can receive up to 4 complimentary tickets to each home event. You must put down the name of the specific person receiving the ticket and they must sign for them. You can occasionally have a meal at the home of a staff member or a booster, but the booster cannot take you to a restaurant and buy the meal for you. They can cater a meal at their house and invite you over. There are other things that are non-permissible benefits, including special discounts, payment arrangements, use of personal credit cards, free or reduced costs for services, loans of money, automobiles, or use of an automobile, and paying bills. A booster can provide you with employment as long as you are working for the payment and being paid the same amount as other employees who perform the same job. SBU will provide you a pregame meal, actual and necessary travel expenses, and reasonable entertainment while you are away for contests. There is also a possibility to be a student host whenever your coach has potential student athletes on campus, so there is money to be used for covering the expenses of entertaining the recruit. You cannot buy them t-shirts or souvenirs with this money, but you can use it to do something fun with them and show them around Bolivar. I think there is also a limit of you can't take them more than 30 miles away from campus. So that does kind of limit your activities, but if you're interested in doing that, you can probably talk with your coach. Okay, countable activities during the season. There is a maximum of 4 hours per day and 20 hours per week that you should be doing athletic activities. You are required to have 1 day off a week. If you are exceeding this, please let us know. Any activity such as game film counts, so that would not be considered a day off unless you are watching it on your own time and it is not a mandatory meeting. A day of competition counts as 3 hours no matter how long it takes. During vacation periods, these hour limitations are not in effect. You may receive an email asking for you to verify how many hours you have practiced. Please be sure to reply to that. Outside of playing season, a maximum of 8 hours a week can be spent on weightlifting, conditioning, and skilled instruction. Of those 8 hours, not more than 4 hours can be spent on team activities. In football, of the 8 hours, not more than 2 can be spent on skilled instruction or game film. And voluntary activities, they are considered voluntary if they meet the following conditions. The athlete must not be required to report back to a coach or staff member. The activity must be initiated and requested by the student athlete. The coach or staff member can provide information to the athlete related to available opportunities for participation in voluntary activity. Athletes' attendance and participation in the activity may not be recorded for the purpose of reporting back to the coach. And the athlete is not subject to penalty if they do not elect to participate in the activity. There will be no incentive or recognition to the student athlete based on their attendance at the voluntary activity. Some other things you need to consider is that we will be doing drug testing, and if you are taking any ADD drugs, it's possible that that might cause a positive drug test, so please communicate with Mike on that, and I'm sure he'll speak to that a little more. If you have any questions at all or have something we can help you with, please come by and contact us and we'd be happy to help. Thank you.
Hey guys, this is Mike Woolhoy. I'm the head athletic trainer at SBU. I'm going to cover some of the policies and procedures we have going into this year and different things the NCAA requires us to cover before the start of practices. The first thing is COVID. It still exists, unfortunately, so we're still going to have to follow some of the guidelines that we've followed in the past, but there'll be a lot of changes just compared to what we've had to go through in the past couple of years. We won't be doing any type of surveillance testing or anything like that, so that'll be helpful. The only kids that will have to be evaluated and go through the return to play guidelines would be kids that we know test positive. The school is still going to follow Polk County Health's guidelines on quarantine and isolation and all of those type of things. So if you have positive tests and you are just happen to set out of practice and things, please let us know so we can get all that taken care of. The other thing with that, so the quarantine is still approximately the 5 days if you're asymptomatic. You have to be evaluated by a physician before you return to play. We are able to do that during quarantine if you are asymptomatic. And then also we have a 4 to 6 days of return to play, but you can start that during quarantine if you are asymptomatic. So hopefully nobody really gets sick with it and we can kind of keep rolling, but it still exists and we're still going to have to deal with some of those guidelines. Concussion. So concussions are obviously a big part of the NCAA now. We have to do the preseason screenings and all of that kind of stuff and have your baseline tests, and we'll do that yearly. And I have to do some reporting at the end of the year. You signed the concussion education at the beginning of the year saying that you know and understand what a concussion is and the signs and symptoms, and you will let us know if you have those signs and symptoms associated to an injury during practice or outside of practice. When I'm done talking here, there'll be a couple videos you have to watch. One of those is on concussions to do a little bit more education on that. Let's see. Next one is sickle cell. So the NCAA this year changed their stance with Division II, and every new student athlete to SBU has to do a sickle cell test before they are allowed to participate. So I think we've gone through the majority of those, or we're in the process of getting most of those, so we should be good with that. Anybody that is a current SBU athlete and has been here can continue signing the waiver and doesn't have to test if they don't want to. If you change your mind and you'd like to test and just to know your status, let me know and we can get that set up for you. And mental health. So mental health has been a big push by the NCAA in the last couple of years. So I'll have a video to show here in a little bit, and then I also have the Pam Wharton is the counselor on campus now. So, and then we do a screening. So everybody should remember during the physical process you were asked a bunch of questions, and that was a mental health screening sheet. If you score above a 16, I believe, on that, then you will have to see the student counselor at least one time while on campus. And then after that, it's between you and her if you want to continue or not continue. Alcohol abuse. So drugs and alcohol. So we do test for drugs and alcohol. You should see in your packets that you're signing, there's a NCAA drug and alcohol form, and then there's an institutional one. So we have two different drug testings that you are consenting to. The NCAA tests mainly for anabolic steroids, performance-enhancing drugs, things like that. If you go to championships, they will test for street drugs. And then the institution, we will have a random drug test at some point in time, and then we mainly test for street drugs and THC and things of that nature. You'll usually get about a day's notice. We usually test at 6 a.m. If the NCAA is testing, it's a little more rigorous. They actually have to see it leave your body and go into the cup, so it's a little bit more intimidating. And then the institutional test is kind of like basically like what you would do for a job or something like that. We just test it. We test it on site. If it's a non-negative, then it'll get sent off to a lab and they'll measure the levels and all that kind of stuff, and then we'll go from there. All of those drug and alcohol tests will be sent to Student Life, and then they will kind of deal with the positive tests from there. So just some stats on alcohol abuse. So you're 2 times more likely to be injured than non-drinkers from drinking. Alcohol, drugs. So like the THC will affect you in your body for up to 30 days after smoking. So it decreases reaction time and some other things like that. So it really does affect how you perform and optimate, like you spend all the summer working out, trying to get better and, compete at the highest level you can. Drugs and alcohol will affect that and decrease performance over the course of time, and will stay in your system and last longer. Let's see if there's anything else in that. It can take up to 28 days, and it can stay in your system. So like if you smoked 20 days ago and we do a drug test 20 days from then, you could test positive. So it'll stay in your system for quite a while. And then sexual assault is another big push from the NCAA, and I believe you have a new policy in there from a sexual assault, and I think there's some information you have to let us know if you've been convicted or been a part of sexual assault investigations. So it's a big push from the NCAA and trying to corral that. Everybody's seen the Deshaun Watson case and what's happening with that. So the NCAA is really making a push to try to make that more aware and making kids more informed about those. I think the biggest misconception that the colleges go through is when we have a Title IX case or a sexual assault case, it's not a court of law, and we don't have to prove innocence or guilt. We just have to prove that it likely did happen. So basically, all it is someone makes an accusation. Did it happen? Was it unwanted? And if those are all checked yes, you will be in trouble for sexual assault from a university perspective, not necessarily from a legal perspective. Title IX cases are reported to, like Miss Gina Whitehead upstairs is one of the Title IX workers, and you can report a case to her, or any faculty or coach can take those and then take the concerns forward. The university does have a sexual assault program. You should have an email that was sent out somewhere in August from Everfi or Foundry that will get sent and as a requirement. So be looking for that. That's part of the sexual assault prevention that the university does in the athletics. Part of athletics, we have to we have to do something sexual assault. So like we've done Take Back the Night in the past. We did the walk last year, things like that. So we will be doing some different sexual assault things during the year to meet NCAA requirements.
Mental wellness to me really means being the most complete version of yourself. So obviously the physical is one part of it, but I don't think you can really succeed as well as you possibly could in athletics, academics, without truly kind of being sound mentally as well as physically.
It's hard being in college, just to be a regular student in general, but it comes down to, are you taking care of yourself? Simple as nutrition and sleeping. If you can't take care of yourself, you can't function in a normal role as far as performing as an athlete, performing as a student. So a lot of stress comes from that.
It's overcoming that stigma and being able to come out as a student athlete and say, I'm dealing with a mental health issue and I need this help. And that's the challenge that we face as student athletes.
We're human, and mental health issues affect more than just our performance. They affect our day-to-day lives and our ability to function. So it's very important that the coaches understand that a player might be dealing with something and that needs to be taken into account at all times.
Coaches are the first people that come into contact with the student athletes, from recruiting to just coming on campuses for visits and practices, everything. So to understand the mental wellness part of each of their student athletes and players is extremely important.
So having that opportunity as a student athlete to just be able to go into an office or to just call a friend or call your coach, whatever, to share those experiences that maybe you're going through in a difficult time is really beneficial for that student athlete.
Just making sure that our student athletes have training, essentially, so just are more aware of the signs if a student athlete is going through something. That's something crucial that we can add to our campuses. Just awareness as a whole needs to get better because we're working towards it and we're getting somewhere with mental health as a whole, but I just feel like there's still a lot more that we can do.
If you're still struggling with consent, just imagine instead of initiating sex, you're making them a cup of tea. You say, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea?" And they go, "Oh my God, I would love a cup of tea, thank you." Then you know they want a cup of tea. If you say, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea?" And they're like, I'm not really sure. Then you can make them a cup of tea, or not, but be aware that they might not drink it. And if they don't drink it, then, and this is the important bit, don't make them drink it. Just because you made it doesn't mean you're entitled to watch them drink it. And if they say, "No thank you," then don't make them tea. At all. Just don't make them tea. Don't make them drink tea, don't get annoyed at them for not wanting tea. They just don't want tea, okay? They might say, "Yes please, that's kind of you." And then when the tea arrives, they actually don't want the tea at all. Sure, that's kind of annoying as you've gone to all the effort of making the tea, but they remain under no obligation to drink the tea. They did want tea, now they don't. Some people change their mind in the time it takes to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk. And it's okay for people to change their mind, and you are still not entitled to watch them drink it. And if they are unconscious, don't make them tea. Unconscious people don't want tea, and they can't answer the question, "Do you want tea?" because they're unconscious. Okay, maybe they were conscious when you asked them if they wanted tea, and they said yes, but in the time it took you to boil the kettle or brew the tea and add the milk, they are now unconscious. You should just put the tea down, make sure the unconscious person is safe, and this is the important part again, don't make them drink the tea. They said yes then, sure, but unconscious people don't want tea. If someone said yes to tea, started drinking it, and then passed out before they'd finished it, don't keep on pouring it down their throat. Take the tea away. Make sure they are safe, because unconscious people don't want tea. Trust me on this. If someone said yes to tea around your house last Saturday, that doesn't mean they want you to make them tea all the time. They don't want you to come around to their place unexpectedly and make them tea and force them to drink it, going, "But you wanted tea last week," or to wake up to find you pouring tea down their throat going, "But you wanted tea last night." If you can understand how completely ludicrous it is to force people to have tea when they don't want tea, and you are able to understand when people don't want tea, then how hard is it to understand when it comes to sex? Whether it's tea or sex, consent is everything. And on that note, I'm going to make myself a cup of tea.